The Kansas City Chiefs were back on the practice field once again for day 12 of training camp, as we now find ourselves less than 1 week away from the first preseason game. There are some notes to be taken from this practice, but it is worth noting that it was not a full padded, full contact practice, so it was a lot more of the early camp vibes versus what we've been seeing lately, in as much not a whole lot of offensive line notes, the offensive line and the wide receiver position obviously being two of the more interesting aspects of this preseason for the Kansas City Chiefs. But we start today's video with wide receiver, where Peter at Sweeney gives us a bit from the Sky Moore post-practice interview. Chiefs wide receiver Sky Moore says that the receiver room is stacked now. He calls it one of the best receiver rooms in the league. Moore adds that in year 3, he feels comfortable. Patrick Mahomes has told him he has everything he needs to succeed. He just needs to keep playing. Maybe there's a little more to it than that, Patrick, but I'm glad you are sticking up for your guy. This is going to be interesting seeing what Sky Moore is able to bring to the table. He has had a very quiet preseason if you take out some gaffes. Unfortunately for Sky Moore, he has been on the batting end of some interceptions, etc., where he's knocked the ball into the air and the ball has been intercepted. That was a big problem for the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2021 season. I believe it was 2021, 2022, where the Chiefs wide receivers had just decided to play volleyball, and Patrick Mahomes suffered because of it. But we are not talking a whole lot about Sky Moore this preseason, and it makes you wonder if we are in the wrong. Is Sky Moore just quietly putting together the preseason that he needs to in order to once again be a Kansas City Chief and a contributing member of this wide receiver corps? Or is there hype, too much hype perhaps, around other wide receivers for the Chiefs that are maybe making flashier plays, but not as... We saw this with Shane Buechele a little bit last year. Shane Buechele had a great preseason for the Kansas City Chiefs, but ended up getting cut anyway. It would seem that perhaps he was not playing assignment sound football. That's the only thing the only conclusion to which I can find myself, because Shane Buechele was absolutely the second most effective quarterback in the preseason, whether or not he was effective in the ways that he was supposed to be effective. Does that make sense? So, if he was not playing the game of football to the way Andy Reid said, this is the first read, this is the second read, etc., then Andy Reid's not going to keep him on the football team. That's the only conclusion I can come to. Perhaps the Nico Remigios of the world, perhaps the Justin Rosses of the world, etc., are not playing assignment specific football, while and whereas Sky Moore is, and he's just not getting the looks that he would need. So oftentimes we are getting actual reception counts out of, I believe it's Pete who was giving the reception counts at the conclusion of practice, and Sky Moore is near the bottom of that list time and time again. Maybe we just don't know what we're looking at. I'm not here to talk bad about Sky Moore. It's just he's not taking that next step, at least from the outside looking in. Matt Derrick comes to us and says, not practicing Sunday, Nick Bolton, Kadarius Toney, and Kelvin Joseph, along with PUP NFI list, Justin Reed, Derek Nani, Charles Omenihu, and BJ Thompson. Haven't seen wide receiver Jaren Hyatt. Now, maybe, so Jaren Hyatt was an interesting prospect. Had the ability to be one of these sneakier kind of wide receivers that finds himself open and is able to make a catch. Could have been, I think, potentially a deep threat type guy. I'm talking about him already in past tense as if he has been cut. I do not know that. It would not surprise me, though. We haven't heard peeps from him in this training camp. He has not made any waves for himself. He is at the bottom of a list of wide receivers that is looking to be a very long list, making the team anyhow. He does not have the tools that many of the receivers above him do have, so it is difficult to imagine him closing that gap. That said, if he is no longer a member of the Kansas City Chiefs, we are keeping with pace of every other day someone not be. So I think by actual numbers, it would be every third day, if Jaron Heinitz is no longer a Kansas City Chief, that Brett Veach has gone ahead and moved on from someone. We talked about this on this channel. I predicted this, and I don't say that to toot my own horn. The reason I say that is because it was kind of a forecast that Brett Veach is not resting on his laurels. Brett Veach is attacking this season perhaps more aggressively than any season we have seen him thus far attack. Maybe not necessarily from the big name free agent respect. We have not seen him. We saw him make one of the smartest moves in free agency, signing Hollywood Brown to basically a discount contract, but not any of the big splashy plays that we have seen him sign in recent years. But like I always say, Brett Veach is a guy who's going to stop and pick up a penny. And he is, if you can flip a penny for a nickel, it's not going to make you rich immediately, but you will have more money. Brett Veach is walking down the street trading people pennies for nickels. And eventually, one of those nickels, maybe it's a Buffalo nickel, maybe it's a war nickel. It's got the silver content in it. He's going to find something that works out for his team. And if this is what's happening here with Jaron Heinitz, yet again, Ron Kopp tells us Chiefs' first team went against a reserve defense for their initial team period. And this is a wild tweet. So it's the first team offense against the second team defense. Xavier Worthy caught a deep post touchdown. Hollywood Brown hauled in a touchdown off a corner post. Rice was open for a run-in touchdown off of a deep crosser. Brown ran a wheel route for a wide open for a deep touchdown. Mecole Hardman hauled in a bomb post touchdown. That's a lot of touchdowns. And yes, it's against the second defense. You're not really dealing with a pass rush because it's not a full pad practice. I don't care. The Chiefs have second-string defensive backs who would be starting on half the teams in the league. The fact that they just went roughshod on this defensive back group, look, it's training camp, I know, but these are passes that we didn't see completed last season, not because the wide receiver wasn't open. These are passes that we saw incomplete, fall fallow to the turf last season because the wide receivers could not haul them in. You remember all of those plays. I could pull up any of those plays that fell to the ground, and you would remember it because of how angry you were in the moment. We will not have as many of those opportunities this season, I dare to say. So just a wild bit there. Now, here's a question. Have we talked about Justin Ross today? We have not. 2 days ago, I came out with the conspiracy theory that either Justin Ross or Nico Remigio makes waves in any given practice, but never both of them. They are never both in the same room at the same time. No one has ever seen two of them on the field at once. Is this some type of shapeshifter, some type of skinwalker playing for the Kansas City Chiefs, who happens to be both Nico Remigio and Justin Ross? If so, it will save us the roster spot. But Ron tells us that Nico Remigio just made a late submission for catch of the day. Deep down the seam, he had to adjust last second, concentrated through a bobble, and stayed up to run it into the end zone versus the starting defense. Meaning that he was with the second team offense and had a deep seam come open, bobble the catch over a Kansas City Chiefs starting defensive back, and run it to the end zone. This is like the JV guy who schools the varsity defense in practice. Soon enough, coach says, you're starting on Friday. Soon enough, coach is working you into the rotation on Friday night. This is promising to see for the Nico Meister. And Nick Jacobs gives us this as well. Justin Watson on here making a catch on an intermediate dig. He looked good out there, no issues. This is because Justin Watson has been absent from the practice field with that foot injury that he had a few days ago. This is another example of the Chiefs' injuries sometimes providing a blessing in disguise. Justin Watson doesn't need these reps. Justin Watson, we know who Justin Watson is. Justin Watson knows who Justin Watson is. And this is maybe on the same scale as we know who Sky Moore is, right? But there's a little bit of a difference between the two because Justin Watson was not a second round selection in the draft. Justin Watson also, so Sky Moore has basically two identical seasons in the NFL of 250 receiving yards. Justin Watson's first year with the team, he had 315 yards. Last season, and he missed games last season, right? If I'm not mistaken about that, he missed some games last year, 460 yards. So we know that Justin Watson is that kind of guy. A great number 4 wide receiver, a superb number 5 wide receiver. If you can get names above him on the depth chart, he becomes dangerous because all of a sudden it's a linebacker that's covering him when he's on the field. Now, this is brought up because Justin Watson missed all of those practices, meaning that guys who need the reps, guys who the coaching staff were trying to assess were on the field. I do not think I've seen some rumblings around Twitter /X, people that think Justin Watson is going to be cut. I do not believe so. Justin Watson is a very high floor player. Justin Watson, in the event that anyone gets injured, can step onto the field. Justin Watson has an X-receiver build. In the event that Rashee Rice is, suspended, he's a guy who can step onto the field in the same types of roles. He's not going to be Rashee Rice, but he can fill that role. He is the same size of guy. He is a little bit faster than Rashee Rice, and he can run those same types of routes. The only offensive line note that I have here comes to us from Ron Kopp. Any toss pitch left is a fun play at Chiefs camp. Kingsley flies out to cover so much ground. And I have to wonder if this is part of what is factoring into the Kansas City Chiefs seeming to favor Kingsley Suamataia at the left tackle position, his versatility. And I believe I read a note, though I did not transfer it over here, that we saw Wanya Morris is still out technically, but during a walkthrough portion, he was playing left guard with the second team. Joe Thuney was out there with the first team, not a full contact day. Remember, Tight end. Okay. A little bit of mea culpa here. I'm going to read this note. This comes to us from Ron as well. Catch of the day at Chiefs camp goes to Noah Gray. Play action pass sent him across on a drag. Mahomes threw it behind him, but Gray used just his trailing hand to secure on his shoulder and continue upfield. Yesterday's video. The Chiefs signed a young tight end, mysterious tight end. And I made the case, as I know I am sometimes too quick to do. I made the case, look, Travis Kelce's your starter. I don't think there's any question about that. Jared Wiley appears to me to be the number 2 tight end in town. Then you have Noah Gray, who's done decent work for the Kansas City Chiefs in the past 2 seasons. 2 of the last 3 seasons, he's entering his final season. And you have Irv Smith, who to me, not a professional scout, not a professional football coach. Irv Smith, who looks to me to do a lot of the same things that Noah Gray does on the football field and maybe has a little bit more athleticism around the edges. Now you bring in this other tight end, you're not keeping 5, so why sign another tight end? Maybe the idea is you shine up Noah Gray in the preseason to get some trade value out of him, and Irv Smith can step up into that void as he is kind of the same type of guy as Noah Gray. Now, I'm very quick to put those theories out there. I know that. It's also just as valid a theory, maybe more so, that Irv Smith is not living up to tight end number 4 status. Maybe I should have made that case. Irv Smith is someone who I haven't heard a single peep about so far through 12 days of training camp. Noah Gray pops up every few days. So sometimes I throw things out there too fast. At the running back position, we have 2 notes. Ron Kopp hits us with this. Chiefs running plays on air. Second team was featuring Carson Steele at running back on a few plays. A screen, a perimeter toss, at least. I still think Carson Steele ends up being the practice squad running back. I don't think he's going to make the 53. For him to make the 53, I think he has to beat out Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think because I believe Deneric Prince is going to be the number 2 running back. To beat out Clyde Edwards-Helaire would be a monumental feat because Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a very high floor. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire spends most of his time closer to his floor than his ceiling, but he does have a very high floor. He is a very experienced hand. He knows what he's doing, and you know Clyde Edwards-Helaire can get you 3 yards in a cloud of dust. At this time, and here's another factor. Running backs get injured in the NFL. It's just going to happen. Someone's going to miss some games. So, at that point, the big worry becomes if you're going to be the 4th running back and only keep 3, there's only a certain amount of times you can be called up from the practice squad before you have to be signed to the roster or cut. I think, right? That's a rule that might be they have to pay you something or they have to cut you. At that point, if Carson Steele is your answer at the number 4 running back position, do you keep a second practice squad running back in order that you do not exhaust Carson Steele's availability during this season and end up not having him? Because I do think that he's a guy who looks talented enough that if he does become the Chiefs practice squad running back, they call him up, I believe it's 3 times, and then kind of have to move on from him, I do believe someone else will sign him. And we've seen with other players the Chiefs have lost through the waiver wire, etc. Hard to get him back. From Nick, Prince rotating with Pacheco with the ones at Chiefs camp. Now, I am indefatigable in saying that Prince is going to be the number 2 running back. Deneric Prince is going to get meaningful carries this NFL season. I really do believe that. This, however, does not prove that. I think that it is a meaningful progression in that direction because it appears to me that what they're doing, starting with this practice, is gearing up for that first preseason game. In gearing up for that first preseason game, we're giving Deneric Prince reps with the first team, meaning probably he's going to get some looks out there early in the game on Saturday in order to see if he really can cut it in the NFL. He's not going to get all the carries against the threes where he can go out there and be faster and beat up on some guys. He's going to get the carries against the number 1 defense, probably, for the opposing teams during this preseason in order that the Chiefs can figure out exactly what they have in Deneric Prince and whether or not he can be the backup this coming season. Notes at cornerback, and then I have one defensive line note. From Pete, Jalen Watson is indeed back in the mix working as a second-team cornerback. This is good to see. I do not believe he will stay on that second-team grind for long. He is very early back in his participation. So I stand by the prediction that he's going to be a starter this season. Because he has missed so much time this preseason, it might not be week 1. So we might be looking at someone else starting early in the season and Jalen Watson working his way back up to basically the top 3 corners. The Chiefs will play 3 corners on a boatload of defensive snaps. So, man, the number of guys the Chiefs have right now that can play cornerback at the NFL level is impressive. I don't know what you want to do with that if you're the Chiefs. So I think that the odds are the Kansas City Chiefs are going to end up having to part ways with some of these cornerbacks. I don't think you can carry all of them on the practice squad. I don't think you can. I just don't think you can. Let me see if I can find something real quick. Initial. I should have had this ready. But with all of the names that the Chiefs do have. Okay. Nope, that's not right. With all of the names that the Chiefs do have at cornerback, what they could be doing is finding value somewhere else. The problem is, where are you going to be finding value for this team? Defensive tackle is the only place where you have a need that could be adequately shored up by someone who is a cornerback that is likely to get cut. But even then, the Chiefs have plenty of bodies at defensive tackle. If they're going to cut their 6th corner, and instead of that they want to trade him for a defensive tackle, are they going to get a body that can stick on the roster at defensive tackle? I'm not sure. Last season, the Kansas City Chiefs went into week 1 with 5 cornerbacks and 4 safeties. The cornerbacks, Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, and Nick Jones. 4 of those 5 names return this season. At safety, Justin Reed, Brian Cook, Chamari Connor. So we have Chamari Connor listed as a safety here, and Mike Edwards. When you start looking at the Chiefs this season, you're looking at guys. So give me 1 second. I apologize for this. I should have had this pulled up. Miles Battle, in my opinion, is going to be a practice squad guy. He's 6'3", 196 pounds with good measurables. Why cut him? Keep him on the practice squad. Echo Boydo, do you want to risk putting him on the practice squad a second year? Nick Jones, Kelvin Joseph, and Keith Taylor are both guys who were not here last year, but are making waves at practice day in and day out, getting reps with the ones. That's 2 names, plus Echo Boydo, 3 names at the cornerback position to replace L'Jarius Sneed. Will the Chiefs carry more than 5 cornerbacks into the season? Things are getting tight with the 53-man roster numbers. In my opinion, if we see one of these cornerbacks flipped, it will be in exchange for draft considerations in the same way that we saw Ihmir Smith-Marsette traded last year for draft considerations but not guaranteed picks. The final note that I have here from Pete, Mike Pennel was at the microphone after practice. Mike Pennel says a big part of choosing to come back to Kansas City was the atmosphere. He actually says he likes the idea of no veteran days off. Mike Pennel adds that's why there are so many older players playing at a high level, and he wanted that again. He likes the idea of no veteran days off. In related news, when he got back to the locker room, Chris Jones told him never to show his face in Kansas City again. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Kansas City Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on the channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.